Cities in the time of Jesus hid countless details that modern readers of the Bible rarely notice. Archaeology reveals that daily life was far harsher than we often imagine.
After sunset, stepping outside could become extremely dangerous.
There were no police forces and no public street lighting. City gates were locked immediately after darkness arrived.
Anyone left outside risked losing their life.
A traveling spiritual teacher and his closest followers lived in a world shaped by constant survival. We begin, and don't forget to subscribe for more documentary stories.
Today, we will step into this dangerous and fascinating world. 30 years after the birth of Jesus, the towns of Galilee looked nothing like the marble cities of Rome. Most homes were built from clay, stone, and simple wood, gathered from nearby hills. The streets were narrow, crowded, and filled with the sounds of daily survival.
Markets were noisy places where families traded food, tools, and handmade goods.
Capernaum stood beside the Sea of Galilee, known as a busy fishing town. Fishing was the lifeblood of the town, providing food and income for many families. Roman rule was visible everywhere, reminding the people that they were not free.
These humble towns became the places where Jesus would live, work, and begin changing the world.
City streets were often no wider than a few steps across. People shared these tight spaces with animals, traders, and passing caravans. Open drainage and wastewater ran through the streets, creating constant health dangers.
Houses were built like protective fortresses, with thick walls and very few street windows.
Most daily life happened inside shared courtyards, where families lived and worked together.
Privacy was rare, and neighbors could often hear everything happening around them.
After sunset, the narrow streets became even more dangerous and unpredictable. The appearance of Roman soldiers made people step aside and lower their eyes in respect or fear. Those tasked with collecting taxes or enforcing the law held the power of life and survival in their hands.
Power belonged to those who bore arms, and all others had to find ways to survive.
Roman officials lived behind strong walls, observing and controlling the lives of those below. Every gesture, every step, was dictated by the presence of armed authority.
Survival meant understanding who held power and navigating carefully around them.
Houses were built as living systems, where survival depended on every corner and level of the home.
Families lived on elevated platforms above their animals, sharing warmth and shelter in one enclosed space.
Animals slept below, their bodies providing heat that helped the family survive the cold nights.
People slept and lived on raised platforms, keeping their bodies above the animals that shared their homes. Every home was a layered ecosystem, where people and animals lived together in constant proximity to survive.
The story of the manger is not of a distant stable, but of a crowded home where family had to make room for everyone, including animals. Families had to adapt, sharing their limited space with both people and animals to survive the night.
The animals beneath the platform provided warmth, their presence a vital part of the household's survival. The animals beneath the platform provided warmth, their presence a vital part of the household's survival.
The newborn lay among family and animals alike, showing that humility and survival were intertwined.
The true meaning of the manger is found in shared space, care, and survival, where love.
Summer heat made narrow streets almost unbearable.
Families climbed roofs to escape heat and odors.
People cooked and dried food atop sunlit rooftops.
Children ran and observed neighbors from above.
Wind softened heat and carried away unpleasant smells.
Families gathered, finding calm and comfort above homes. Night brought quiet, peace, and relief from the heat. History didn't end here. Follow to explore what came next. Women in Galilee fetched water only early morning or late evening.
Midday trips were avoided because the sun was intense and unbearable.
Village norms reinforced this schedule to protect women from exhaustion.
Social expectations kept women from public scrutiny during midday hours.
The Samaritan woman came at this forbidden hour, alone and visible.
Visiting the well at noon risked gossip, shame, and social isolation.
Her presence challenged both social norms and the town's prejudices.
This explains why her encounter with Jesus was extraordinary and memorable. Her story reflects social rules, marginalization, and cultural boundaries clearly.
In Galilee, water baths were primarily for ritual, not hygiene. People washed hands, feet, and occasionally small vessels before prayers.
Purity laws governed daily life, marking separation from sin and uncleanness.
Stone basins and small cisterns were common in private homes.
At the synagogue, worshippers performed ritual washing before entering sacred spaces. Even merchants and travelers observed purification customs to respect local law.
Water was a symbol of spiritual cleansing, linking humans to God.
Ritual baths could involve flowing water or carefully collected rainwater.
Breaking these purification rules could bring social disapproval or religious censure. These practices highlight how faith structured ordinary acts of daily life. These ideas still shape our world. Stay to understand why. Nazareth was a small, humble village with simple mud brick homes.
Narrow, dusty streets wound between houses, with animals resting nearby.
People lived close together, sharing courtyards and daily labor intimately.
A few kilometers away, Sepphoris displayed Roman wealth and architectural grandeur. The city had theaters, mosaics, colonnades, and richly decorated villas.
Roman culture emphasized luxury, entertainment, and public displays of power.
Nazareth villagers rarely visited, keeping traditional lifestyles and local customs.
Islands. The contrast highlighted tensions between simplicity, faith, and Roman influence.
Children in Nazareth observed the distant city, imagining a different life. This cultural divide shaped perceptions, opportunities, and social aspirations clearly. Traveling between towns was dangerous, filled with threats and uncertainty. Bandits often attacked travelers on isolated roads and mountain paths. Caravans formed for safety, moving slowly with guards and animals. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho was notoriously perilous. Steep cliffs and narrow passes gave ambushers hidden advantage. Merchants and pilgrims risked robbery, injury, and even death. Travelers relied on knowledge of terrain and local allies. Camel and donkey caravans carried supplies, people, and valuables together. Fear and vigilance shaped every journey through Judea and Galilee. These dangers influenced daily life, trade, and the spread of news. During festival pilgrimages, entire families traveled together for safety.
Narrow, crowded streets filled with merchants, animals, and other pilgrims.
Children moved among adults, curious, running ahead or lagging behind. Villagers carried clay jars, woven baskets, and small bundles carefully. The heat, dust, and bustle of the road required constant attention. Parents watched the children closely, yet the crowd pressed tightly around them. In the midst of the commotion, Jesus wandered slightly away, unnoticed. His family only realized his absence after entering the city gates. The search through busy streets brought fear, worry, and frantic calling. This story reflects daily life, communal journeys, and vigilant family care.
Travelers often carried all their food during long pilgrimages.
Religious rules forbade eating in homes of strangers along the way. Families packed bread, dried fruit, and small jugs of water.
Carrying provisions added weight, slowing travel over rough terrain. Crowded roads and narrow paths forced careful coordination among pilgrims.
Children helped ballast baskets while walking alongside donkeys and camels. Pilgrims ate sparingly, resting only in shaded areas along the road.
The constant vigilance over food reflected both law and survival.
Even brief stops required attention to animals, possessions, and fellow travelers.
During Passover, Jerusalem transformed into a crowded pilgrimage city. Thousands of travelers arrived from across Judea, Galilee, and beyond.
Families filled streets, courtyards, and temporary shelters surrounding the temple.
The temple functioned as both spiritual center and community gathering place.
pilgrims brought animals required for traditional Passover religious offerings.
Priests worked continuously, guiding rituals according to ancient sacred laws.
The temple courtyards echoed with prayers, chanting, and constant movement.
Markets nearby sold animals, oil, grain, and ceremonial supplies.
The overwhelming atmosphere combined devotion, tradition, and intense human activity.
Passover revealed Jerusalem as the heart of Jewish spiritual identity.
The temple courtyards included areas dedicated to commercial religious services. Pilgrims needed approved currency to participate in temple offerings. Money changers exchanged foreign coins for accepted temple currency.
Merchants sold animals required for ritual observances and sacred traditions.
These markets filled the courtyards with constant negotiation and movement.
The commercial activity gradually overshadowed the temple's spiritual atmosphere.
Many pilgrims struggled to afford the rising costs of required offerings. Religious leaders permitted trade, believing it supported temple operations.
Jesus viewed this environment as distracting from sincere worship. His response emphasized restoring reverence within the sacred temple space. During major festivals, Jerusalem's population expanded far beyond normal capacity.
City streets became tightly packed with travelers, animals, and supplies. Homes quickly filled, forcing visitors to seek shelter wherever possible.
Families crowded rooftops, sharing limited space beneath open night skies. Many pilgrims slept along streets, courtyards, and narrow passageways.
Food, water, and sanitation resources became increasingly strained and unreliable.
The constant noise and movement made rest difficult for exhausted travelers.
Heat and dense crowds intensified discomfort throughout the city's neighborhoods.
Despite hardship, pilgrims endured conditions to fulfill sacred religious obligations.
These gatherings revealed both devotion and the harsh realities of pilgrimage life.
South of Jerusalem lay the Valley of Hinnom, avoided by residents.
The valley functioned as a disposal site for the city's waste. Refuse, broken materials, and discarded items accumulated in large quantities. Controlled fires were maintained to reduce waste and lingering odors.
Smoke often rose continuously, visible from nearby city walls. The location became associated with decay, neglect, and social rejection.
Residents rarely traveled there unless required by unpleasant duties. The Valley's reputation created a powerful visual warning for moral teachings.
Jesus referenced this location when describing spiritual separation and judgment.
Gehenna became a lasting symbol, shaped by daily urban reality. Those afflicted with skin diseases lived isolated beyond city walls.
Villagers kept their distance, avoiding contact with contaminated individuals.
Exiles wore tattered garments, signaling illness to all passers-by.
They called out warnings, their voices echoing across dusty plains.
Surrounding terrain was harsh, rocky, and devoid of sustaining water. Families abandoned their kin, leaving them vulnerable to nature's harshness. Some found refuge in caves or makeshift shelters, enduring exposure.
Community laws enforced separation, emphasizing ritual purity over personal compassion.
Jesus observed these realities, teaching mercy amidst societal fear and isolation.
The exile of lepers became a lasting symbol of spiritual marginalization.
Touching the sick, dead, or unclean was feared as spiritual contamination.
Rules dictated who could approach, who must stay at a distance. Society viewed physical contact as risking contamination of the spirit.
Objects and surfaces touched by the unclean were ritually suspect.
Touching the dead required purification rituals, avoiding spiritual harm.
Ritual washing was essential to restore purity after potential contact. Entire communities maintained distance to prevent spiritual contamination. Even young ones were taught caution, learning spiritual boundaries early. Jesus noted these laws, teaching mercy beyond rigid ritual rules.
Ritual purity laws shaped daily life, marking spiritual and social boundaries.
Roman tax collectors seized citizens' earnings, enforcing imperial demands strictly.
Civilians paid taxes under threat, fearing punishment or confiscation. Soldiers could compel any person to transport burdens forcibly.
Daily life was weighed down by taxes and enforced labor.
Farmers surrendered harvests, while soldiers watched closely for resistance. Collected wealth was transported swiftly to satisfy distant Roman authorities.
The presence of soldiers ensured compliance through intimidation and force.
Daily routines were overshadowed by taxation and constant surveillance.
Jesus witnessed oppression, teaching compassion amidst systemic injustice.
Roman taxes and enforced labor became enduring symbols of human oppression.
Cities like Caesarea displayed imperial wealth built upon provincial poverty.
Lavish plazas and decorated streets highlighted Rome's ostentatious display.
Wealthy elites prospered, while provincial laborers remained impoverished. Streets echoed with opulence, masking hardships of distant provinces.
Public baths and grand halls demonstrated concentrated imperial extravagance.
Imported wealth flowed from provinces, enriching city elites visibly.
Tributes enforced imperial authority, sustaining urban luxury at provincial cost.
Artisans labored to satisfy wealthy clients, far from home provinces.
Officials administered wealth, projecting imperial grandeur over subjugated people.
Roman cities' luxury symbolized imperial power built on provincial deprivation.
After sunset, cities descended into near-complete darkness, streets deserted.
Gates were shut tightly, signaling the end of public movement. Light was a rare luxury, offering fleeting comfort against shadows. Alleys fell silent, shadows deepened, fear lingering in air. Families sought safety within homes, guarding against unseen threats. Even elevated rooftops offered little reassurance. Night concealed dangers. Guards patrolled silently, shadows stretching across city defenses.
Strangers feared entry after dusk, relying on scarce torchlight.
Doors were secured, keeping darkness and fear firmly outside. Night became a time of fear, when darkness ruled all streets.
Criminals often exploited night, taking advantage of darkness and silence.
They approached homes quietly, seeking opportunity to breach walls. Walls were probed for weaknesses, enabling stealthy nocturnal entry.
Once inside, they moved silently, avoiding detection by residents. Families slept unaware, trusting modest walls to keep them protected.
Loot was taken quickly, disappearing into night without alerting guards. Damaged locks and breached walls testified to urban insecurity nightly. Guards watched streets, yet darkness often concealed lawlessness. Even animals sensed danger, reacting to intruders' subtle movements. Nighttime burglaries turned darkness into a period of fear and peril.
In ancient Judea, even the smallest flame meant protection. Where light burned, fear retreated. Travelers depended on light to guide their steps. Without it, the night concealed danger and uncertainty.
Jesus used the familiar image of light to describe truth, hope, and salvation.
To his listeners, light was more than illumination. It was a sign of God's presence and the promise of salvation. In the year 70 AD, Roman legions surrounded Jerusalem. The city that once stood as a spiritual center now faced complete devastation. As the siege continued, food disappeared. Hunger spread through every household, weakening the people and breaking the structure of society. When the defenses finally collapsed, Roman forces entered the city. Violence and chaos spread through Jerusalem's streets.
The destruction of the temple marked one of the greatest tragedies in Jewish history, ending an era of worship centered in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem lay in ruins, its people scattered, its temple destroyed, and its society forever changed.
The temple leadership vanished, ending centuries of priestly authority. The Sadducees lost influence as their temple-centered power collapsed completely.
Pharisaic teachers preserved Jewish law through study and teaching. Early Christians spread Jesusal teachings across expanding Roman territories. Faith traditions adapted, shaping religious history for future generations.
Cities fell, yet their spiritual messages endured across generations.
Written teachings preserved beliefs, allowing faith to travel far. Travelers carried beliefs across cultures, shaping distant civilizations.
Communities preserved teachings, passing faith through family and tradition.
Ideas born there continue influencing humanity throughout history.
Faith survived ruins. Subscribe to continue this story.